today we are, this week, we are focusing on Windows 10 installation. You guys should be somewhat familiar now with Windows 10 installation and installing a virtual machine. If you're not, please go through and watch the video again from last week. Just to kind of reiterate this virtual machine process, but also to kind of get you in the habit of installing a virtual machine. I do have a couple other labs for you. One will be focusing on going through and installing Windows 7 and also Windows 8, because I do want you guys to get a little bit of experience with both of those, mainly because you quite possibly could see these out in the real world or out in the wild, right? There are some companies that are still using Windows XP. Just because their software works on Windows XP, they don't have it connected to the internet, so therefore it's not a huge security risk, but it runs their software that runs their, say, their robot or their conveyor or whatever it may be out in the factory. So you still will see those, which is why you will be doing that. And because this is an online class, we are somewhat limited in what we can do. I can't give you a DVD or a flash drive and have you boot to that flash drive. So unfortunately, this is just kind of where we're at. But I do want to make this as realistic as possible. So again, I'm going to have you go through and set up a virtual machine for Windows 8 and for Windows 10. I want you to look through, tell me some differences, tell me which one you like, which one you don't like, etc. Okay? If you do have any questions, again, please let me know. You're going to go through that same installation process, only instead of picking Windows 10, you'll pick Windows 8 or Windows 7 accordingly, right? And always make sure you install your operating system later. Remember, we don't put it in that first step. We go through at the very end and add it. Okay, so while this is going, I'll get back to this. Let's go through, and I'm going to do the check and study guide with you, okay? So instead of doing a lecture with my classes, I do like to go through and do the study guides. It gives you something to follow along with, something to look back on when you go through and take your tests. And yes, you can use this on your test. Okay, so there are different ways that you can install Windows 10, and we've talked about those. Okay, so you have your DVD boot installation, which I can't give you, and it's an older school way. Like a lot of your systems don't have optical drives anymore, so you can't do the DVD boot installation. You have your distribution share. Or you also have image-based installation. Okay. So those are your three ways. So of those following types, which one is not the best method for Windows 10 and why? Well, DVDs, because you're gonna have to sit in front of the system, make sure it has an optical drive, right? Go through, and you have to sit at every single desk, right, and install it, which would take forever. Wait for that one to get done and move it to the next one. So, not the best, right? Can you customize a DVD boot installation? No, it's the bare minimum, right? You install and you go, okay? Number 4, blank is a limited and non-GUI version of Windows 10 that can be used for installing, troubleshooting, and repairing Windows 10. And that is Windows PE. And I'm hoping we can get to Windows PE in another chapter. But again, for this one, I just want to focus on installation. Okay, so that is Windows PE, pre-installation environment. Okay, that's what that PE stands for. All right, number 5, a distribution share installation requires computers to be booted into blank from removable storage and then run on the Windows 10 installation from a distribution share on the server. That is your Windows pre-installation environment, or Windows PE. All right, number 6. So, a blank is a copy of a previously prepared operating system that has been copied to a file. This is an image. So we can put on our image anything that we want or need, right? Specific software, programs, etc. You name it, which makes it really, really easy to then disperse out into your environment. Number 7, so going along with that, right, with our image, we have this, which is the fastest type of installation because all the configuration is already complete, and that is your image-based installation. You use that image, and then you, sorry, there's a bug in here, and then you distribute that installation, okay, image-based installation, okay. All right, number 8, so a clean install requires that you wipe the existing hard drive prior to installation. So when I was going through, I'm pretty sure I talked about this, when I was going through your first video talking about the Windows 10 environment, and if you had a formatted hard drive, this would show up, right? And it would require you to format that drive, so remove all of those partitions, so then you would be able to then do a clean installation of Windows 10, and then Windows would go through and format it appropriately. Okay, so that would be a clean install. Now, this used to be the recommended way. It depends on what you're doing, right? It could still be recommended here in your environment, but Microsoft, take it or leave it for what they say, right? Microsoft now recommends in-place upgrades instead of clean installs. So if you're going from one version to another, they recommend just doing an in-place upgrade. Personally, out in the wild, if you're moving from, say, Windows 10 to Windows 11, you would have had testing environments, right? You would have tested Windows 11, make sure it works with all your programs. You would, pretty much throw it out into your test environment and put everything that you would need, and then you would shoot it out, your image, right? Do image-based installation, which would technically be a clean install over an in-place upgrade on all of your systems. But again, it really, really depends on where you're working and what they prefer, okay? Don't really care what Microsoft says. It's more what your boss says, right? Okay, let's see. Number 10, the blank moves desktop settings and applications from one computer to another. This is the user state migration tool. This can be beneficial, especially out in a home setting. Out in the real world and in your environment, again, it's going to depend, right? So just know that it's there. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. And again, we'll talk about this with user applications, and we'll get into it even more. Okay, number 11, with provisioning, you blank an installation to match organizational requirements rather than reinstalling the operating system. You can modify the existing installation. Number 12, when you perform an upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10, the user settings and files those are retained, right? Because it's an in-place upgrade. Now, that is a benefit of an in-place upgrade over a clean installation, because if you do a clean installation, it's going to get rid of all those files, folders, programs, everything, right? You're formatting the hard drive, which is why Windows prefers an in-place upgrade, why you would probably do an in-place upgrade at home, but depending on where you work, again, up to you, okay? Now, in a lot of work environments, this type of behavior is going to be blocked, because I wouldn't want you moving from Windows 10 in my classroom or in my work environment to Windows 11 without my permission. Like, there's gotta be some testing. It needs to be organized. No, I don't want that chaos, okay? 13, true or false? Users typically get Windows 10 when they buy a new computer. Yes, that is absolutely true. Now, the version, it depends. It's probably going to be Windows 10 Home, but sometimes you might get Pro if you're lucky. All right. Let me scroll up here. 14. A blank installation requires you to manually start the installation, perform the installation by inserting the required information, and choosing settings. This is called attended. Okay, ATTENDED. Okay, attended. Now, it's kind of like an attendant, right? You have to sit there and attend to the installation. Okay, and there is also unattended, where you can basically create an unattended installation file. So it goes through and answers all of the questions and selects everything that you would normally do. So you don't have to sit in front of there. Okay, but this one is attended. 15. If an installation of Windows 10 is not activated, some operating system features are blank, such as personalization. That is disabled, okay? Now, there are ways around it, because as you can see, I do not have these activated, okay? But I was still able to personalize your desktop, okay? There are ways around it. And normally there's a little watermark guy right there, but let's see, true or false. If you perform significant hardware changes to your computer, you may be forced to reactivate Windows 10 because Windows 10 calculates that it is a new installation on a computer. That is true. So, for example, if you swap out your hard drive or your motherboard, you might have to reinstall your activation key. Okay. Number 17. What are 3 ways that you can activate a volume license agreement? Okay. So you have your key management service, or KMS. Okay. So this would require the product key be on a let me start over. So you would essentially have to have your KMS, or your key management service on a computer to act as your central point for all of your systems to talk to and pretty much register, right, inside your internal network. You have multiple activation key, or MAC, and this can be used with a specific number of computers rather than just like once. So this is a good idea for like your mid-sized organizations, but not large, right? And then you also have, which is recommended, right, Active Directory based activation. So pretty much your computer activates as soon as it connects to your domain controller, which has Active Directory on it. And in order for this to work, it has to contact Active Directory at least every 180 days. And you can then implement that Active Directory based application. Number 18, blank contains a number of tools to prepare for deployments and automate the deployment process. And this is Windows 80K. Now, we will get into this more if you are in my online server class. If I'm teaching online server next semester, I'm not 100% sure on that one. But we will talk about Windows deployment servers. And we will use the Windows 80K process, and possibly maybe even a little bit in this class. But that would be what you would go through to pretty much create your image. And again, there's other tools out there. There's Ventoy. That's a good tool. There's one other one out there. Acronis, but you have to pay for Acronis. It used to be open source, and I don't believe it is anymore. But that would allow you to create an image without Windows 80K. 19. The blank helps organizations identify which applications are compatible with Windows 10 and which ones are not. And this is the application compatibility toolkit. So basically you say, hey, is this going to be compatible with Windows 10? And it tells you yes or no. Okay, So the activation compatibility toolkit can scan your computer on your network to gather like all of the applications that you have installed and then basically say, oh yes, this will be compatible with Windows 10. Now this was a big thing when everyone was switching from 8 or 7 up to Windows 10, but obviously now we're going to 11, unfortunately, sometime here in the near future, okay? Windows System Image Manager can do the following. So your System Image Manager can create answer files for your, again, your unattended installations, right? So you don't have to sit there and babysit. It can also add device drivers and applications to your answers file. Okay, so again, for your unattended installation, you don't have to sit and babysit. And it can also create and add files to a distribution share. Okay, so those are the three things that Windows System Image Manager can do. 21. Blank is a very useful tool and is a requirement for deploying Windows 10 by imaging. This is SysPrep, okay? So basically it goes through, takes out all the personalization that you've done to your Windows 10 system and gets it ready to create an image and deploy. 22. Blank is a fully functional installation of Windows 10 on a USB that you can take with you and use on other computers, and this is Windows to Go. I've never used it, never created it, and probably never will, but just for your information. Okay, so, oh, sorry, I was not scrolling. So, go ahead and save that study guide. You now have all of the answers, and we have talked about a lot of the stuff that's in the book, but please still go read, okay? It is beneficial. Before I let you go, remember, submit your study guide, okay? In your ISO folder, you will see that I have went in there, and I put the Windows 8 and Windows 7 ISO in there for you, okay? And just remember, okay, always add that operating system at the end, okay? Install that operating system later. So, I'll show you here. Through, create a new virtual machine, custom, right here, okay? Install that later. And then when you're going through, make sure you are selecting the correct operating system and version, okay? If you have questions, again, let me know. I just want to iterate the best, easiest way to get a hold of me is Discord. I get notifications on Discord. I don't always get notifications from Campus. For whatever reason, I turn them on, try turning them back off, and then turning them back on. I'm still not consistently getting them. So if you want me to respond as soon as possible, Discord is the way to go. Either in our class or you can private message me. Okay? All right, that is all I have for you for this week. Again, if you have questions, reach out. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great week. Thanks, guys.